Álvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, and his arrival along the Texas coast. In the early 1500s, Spain was one of the most dominant of the European empires. Spanish explorers were sent by the King of Spain to expand their kingdom, spread the word of God, and search for valuable commodities. Known as conquistadors, many of these explorers were sent to the New World to accomplish the king's will. In the year 1528, one of these grand expeditions to the New World, utilizing over 600 men, was led by Pánfilo de Narváez. The intention of this mission was to sail from Spain to New Spain, modern-day Mexico, but through a series of unfortunate events, the crew had been ravaged by storms and bad weather, and eventually ended up on the west coast of Florida. The expeditionary crew became separated into smaller groups, and eventually lost track of each other. One of these groups was led by Álvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, and by his side, a man named Esteban de Dorantes, also known as Estevanico. Estevanico is the first African to be documented to have explored North America. After multiple miscommunications and conflicts with the natives along the Florida coast, and with the ship and remaining crew nowhere to be found, the group had no choice but to build rafts out of their surroundings, and began to float in the Gulf of Mexico and do nothing but hope they drift towards New Spain. Unfortunately for the group that had just built 5 rafts out of what they could find along the Florida coast, they did not realize they were over 1,500 miles away from their destination at Tampico, Mexico. As the Gulf current slowly carried them west, the 5 rafts supporting roughly 50 explorers each began to separate. To make matters worse, every time a raft would go ashore, that group would be attacked by natives. After weeks of drifting with the Gulf and beginning to run low on supplies and water, Cabeza de Vaca's group became weary and close to death. Most of the men on Cabeza de Vaca's raft had resigned themselves to dying on that raft. Finally, the raft had come so close to shore that they got caught in heavy surf and washed up on the beach. In November of 1528, Cabeza de Vaca and his crew had washed up on modern-day Galveston Island. Cold and thought to be alone, the crew was exhausted. After only a few hours on the island, Cabeza de Vaca realized they were not alone. The natives on this island immediately jumped in to help Cabeza de Vaca and his crew, providing them with food, shelter, and fire. These natives called themselves Cavoques. The language and description of these Cavoques is strikingly similar to the Karankawa. The Cavoques and Karankawa are believed to be the same people by modern-day historians. Most of these washed-up Spaniards accepted the assistance from these Cavoques. The handful that did not accept the help stayed on the beach and suffered. After one of the stubborn Spaniards would die, cannibalism would take place in that group. The men in the group would rather sit and be cannibalized one by one than accept the help from the natives. It is believed that the misinformation and myth that the Karankawa were cannibals derived from this story. There has been absolutely no evidence found that the Karankawa or Cavoques were cannibalistic. After months had passed, Cabeza de Vaca and his remaining crew built up some strength and were ready to move on. But unfortunately, the natives have gotten used to their presence and their ability to complete menial tasks. For a few years, Cabeza de Vaca and his men remained there as slaves to the natives. Estevanico and Cabeza de Vaca had proven themselves useful in trade missions for these Cavoques. After years of building up a reputation as tradesmen, the men teamed up and accidentally became traveling medicine men around North America. The account of these travels are absolutely fascinating. For more information on the endeavors of Estevanico and Cabeza de Vaca, check out the link in the episode description. After traveling through modern-day Texas, the modern-day American West, and modern-day Mexico, acting as medicine men and healers, Cabeza de Vaca and Estevanico finally met up with some fellow Spaniards near the Sinaloa River Valley. Cabeza de Vaca returned to Spain, and lucky for us, detailed his entire account of 8 years traveling North America. Texas is indebted to Álvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca for its first written account and descriptions of the land and the people.